This is Up Close. I'm Stephen I. Weiss. When it comes to raising the next generation, what tools will we give them? Many would argue that one tool that's worked well in the past is now broken. Chronicle of Higher Education senior writer Goldie Blumenstyk is the author of American Higher Education in Crisis: What Everyone Needs to Know, now in paperback. And then, if you go to a special part of Tokyo, you'll see children literally playing with tools: hammers, nails, even fire. It's an approach we don't see much in the United States. Amy Fusselman explores this fascinating playground in Savage Park, a meditation on play, space, and risk for Americans who are nervous, distracted, and afraid to die. But first, here's my interview with Goldie Blumenstyk. Why do we have a sense that American higher education is in crisis? Why is this feeling out there?
People are concerned about the cost of college, even though there are still plenty of affordable options for college. I think something has entered the conversation a few years ago, the ROI, the return on investment, and somehow the conversation has become, is college worth it? And I think that's where the crisis kind of comes from. People started to have a lot of anxiety, a little bit about the cost of college before the recession, certainly after the recession, a lot more anxiety about whether young people are going to be able to, graduate and get jobs with their degrees. And so that kind of made a giant reverberation into the whole sort of notion of higher education.
But there is a large sea change that's gone on in terms of the cost, the various aid programs, and how they allocate to different groups, how much you're going to be able to afford if you're at various income brackets, and also within certain schools, within certain ideas of, what the top tier is and so forth. That's seen a lot of change as well.
I think the cost issue has definitely seen a lot of change, and part of what you're describing is one of the reasons the cost is going up is because a lot of colleges are spending a lot more on financial aid, and so if you happen to not be one of those families that requires financial aid, your costs are you are paying pretty close to that sticker price. And a lot of other families are paying a different price. They call it the net price. The price after financial aid is counted in, and that's a lower number, but it also costs the colleges money, and in one way it actually drives the price of college up.
There are these kind of blow your mind away numbers, like $1.2 trillion in student debt, which is massive.
It's a giant number.
Unsustainable. A large part of it probably will never be paid back.
Let's think about that number. A lot more students are going to college than ever before. Something like 40% of that $1.2 trillion is for graduate student debt, which a lot of students who go to graduate school then get a master's degree or they get a law degree, and they can earn a lot more money in the market and they can repay that debt. The real problem with the student loan debt is for the students who, number one, didn't graduate, and now they don't have a degree and they have student debt. And particularly many of those students are poor to begin with. And so really the student debt problem is really a problem for lower income students who don't graduate.
Right, and that's a large portion of the lower income students who enter in the first place, right? It's
a large portion of the default rates. Frankly, when you're a lower income student and you're trying to go to college, it's harder to go. You have a lot more other challenges. Most students work right now when they go to college. About a quarter of the students have families who are modern college students. This is not the image that we think about when, this from all the movies and, maybe for people lucky enough like me who were able to go to college, when my parents were able to send me and I was able to go at 18. But a lot of students today are not those students. There's a number I continue to find astounding that I wrote about with this book. In the United States today, a young person who is from a wealthy family is 9 times as likely to have a BA by age 24 than a poor person. 9 times. That's just an inequity in our society that is really kind of staggering. And that number's actually gotten worse over the last 20 or 30 years.
And now, Savage Park with Amy Fusselman. I've got small kids, yes, and I have a pretty good idea of what the realm of playgrounds are in America. What is Savage Park?
Well, the Savage Park, or the title, is an adventure playground in Tokyo that I visited as a guest of my friend Elena. First I went there as a tourist, and then I went there as an intern to the playground's head play worker.
What happens when you approach Savage Park?
It's a playground space that has 3 components. It's a vacant lot, donated tools or scraps, and the presence of a play worker who's there to facilitate children's play but not to direct it. So Savage Park, aka Haneki Play Park in Tokyo, where I was mind-blowing to me because I had never seen a play environment like this for kids before. There were children, young children, tiny children, hammering, playing with fire, playing with the 4 elements, because that part is encouraged there, that type of play. It was a completely just very radical approach.
Right, not what you get here in New York City or most of America.
Right, exactly. I mean, Richard Datner, who's a playground architect who's done many beautiful parks in New York City, called the typical playground structure a guerrilla playground. And going to Savage Park in many ways made those structures visible to me in a way that, you know, only a very contrasting space could have.
It's pretty hard to actually seriously damage a child. Like they're quite rubbery and quite durable. But nonetheless, you put them in enough risky situations, the odds begin to escalate and escalate and escalate.
Sure.
So that, you know, if you have rusty nails lying around,
Sure.
there's you get into high percentage chances where, okay, you know, now we're really talking about adding some serious risk of injury or harm to my child. Now seeing how that was done in Savage Park, how do you manage that as you're trying to expand your children's options?
That's such a good question. I mean, I feel like that's something I think about a lot, is what kind of risks can we take? But in terms of a child taking their own risk, a chosen risk, you know, climbing the rocks in Central Park is a classic. Like, do you really want to, you know, this is a steep thing. Can I tolerate watching that? Yes, I've learned to. I mean, sometimes it's really difficult, but I think that if those risks are never taken, then the opposite is intolerable.
That's all for this week's abbreviated web episode of Up Close. A reminder, you can see the full episode of Up Close on the Jewish channel on cable, or listen to the full audio of the show as a podcast, available on iTunes and your favorite podcast player. The Jewish channel is available on cable, Time Warner Cable Channel 1640, IOPLM Channel 505, RCN Channel 268, Cox Cable Channel 1, Bright House Channel 330, Verizon Fios Channel 900, and on Comcast on the on-demand menu on premium channels. For more information, visit tjctv.com.